Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming my teen pregnancy, how I found out and how I told my parents. So I'm just gonna get right into it. So first, a few things. I'm 17. I know I look really young, but I'm 17 and I'll be 18 by the time my baby's here. And then I am 15 weeks and 6 days. I'll be 16 weeks tomorrow and I'm having a girl. It all started back in December and for like a few days in a row, I was getting really tired and I would like out of nowhere and then I would just take naps, and I never took naps. Like before that, I'm not like a napper, but I was getting really tired all the time, so I would always take naps, and then my boobs were also getting like really sore. So I told my boyfriend at the time that, what was going on and how I felt and stuff. And he was like he didn't really think much of it, but I did. So I went to the store and I got pregnancy tests, and I got the ones that have like the two lines, and I took them, and the lines were really faint. Like there was one line that was like dark and then the other one was really faint. I'll put a picture in here for you guys to see what I'm talking about. So I wasn't really sure, so I posted the picture in my period app, and I just did it like anonymously, and I was like, am I pregnant? Like I can't really tell. And everyone was like, yeah, you're just really early, like, but yeah, you are. So I was like, oh my gosh. I was really, I guess, chill. I wasn't like devastated or like really nervous or anything, because I'm like, well, I'm not gonna tell my parents yet. And I didn't really believe it yet, I guess. I didn't really believe it like right away. A few days later, I went back to the store and I got the clear blue ones that say like pregnant or not pregnant, and I took those and they said pregnant. So yeah, this was around Christmas time that we found out, and I didn't get like any nausea or vomiting or anything right away, but then January came around and I was on the couch like all day, every day when I got home from school, because I was so nauseous. And it wasn't obvious because I was really good at hiding it. Like I was just like secretive about it. I didn't really complain to my mom about it. I just laid down and kind of dealt with it. And I knew I wasn't like showing yet, so I wasn't worried about that either. So my boyfriend left for college on like January 10th, and then I just let time keep going by, and I was like, okay, I need to like tell my mom. And I had already planned all along, I was just gonna write it in a letter and give it to her. I was gonna tell my mom first. And so one night I wrote a letter and I told my mom everything, and I was so nervous to give it to her. Like I just pretty much wrote like, I'm pregnant, I've known for this long, I'm about this many weeks according to like my app, just like my plan. And I had already graduated high school. I graduated in January, so I'm done with that. Not really something I have to worry about. So I told her my plan for like moving forward. It was nighttime and she was outside, so I went and I gave it to her, and she was like, is this gonna stress me out? And I was like, a little bit, because I knew she didn't think anything of it. She was just sitting on the porch. So I gave it to her and I went inside, and I was so nervous. Like I was just sitting in my room waiting for her to text me, because I knew she was going to text me after she read it. She texted me and she was like, we'll talk about it tomorrow. I don't really want to talk about it tonight. And I was like, okay. And she was like, we're going to support you. And, obviously I'm disappointed, but we're still going to support you and be there for you and everything. And yeah, so then I just kind of like left it at that for that night. And then the next day, I didn't want to tell my dad like right away. I wanted to go to the doctor's first and then tell him, but she was like, I think we should tell him. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not ready. I don't want to tell him yet. I come from a religious family. My dad is like the more religious one, and he's just like a dad. So like I knew he was going to be like protective and angry, and my mom was just like, we should tell him. And I was like, okay, can you tell him? And she was like, yeah, I'll call him. After a discussion, she called him, and I was like, can I listen? She's like, no, I don't want you to. So she was outside on the porch and she called him, and I like went to the door and I was like listening, and she started crying, and she's like, Asia's pregnant. And he was like, what? And she said it again, and he was like, all right, I'll call you back, I need to pray. So he hung up, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I went back up, I ran upstairs, and my mama texted me a few minutes later, and she was like, he said he's gonna come by later to talk about it. And all day I was so nervous. So my dad got here later on that day, and he went in the kitchen with my mom, and he texted me, and he was like, you can come down. And yeah, that might be weird. You guys might be like, oh, it's weird, why do you text your parents? That's just what we do. So anyways, I went down, and I was so nervous, like, to go in the kitchen. I went downstairs, and I was like, I can't go in smiling, but I was like nervous. I wasn't happy, I was nervous. So I was like, I can't go in smiling, like, but I can't keep a straight face because I'm nervous. And like, I wanted to cry. I didn't know what to do. So I just went in there, and I was like, had a serious face on. And my dad was sitting down, my mom was standing up, and he was like, so you have something to tell us? And I was like, yeah, I wrote it in the letter. He says, I'm not reading that. And I was like, in my head, I was like, of course. Like, I knew that's just like him. Like, of course he did that. Of course he couldn't just go with the flow and do one thing. So he was like, I'm not reading that. So you can read it to me, or you can just tell me. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was so like upset and mad, because I was like, I wrote this letter so I didn't have, like, it's easier for me to get everything out if I write it and like explain things better and like not forget things. So I wrote it for them to read, and for me to, like, that's how I was gonna explain everything. And he wouldn't read it, so I was so angry, and I was like, and I grabbed the letter because I didn't want to just say, oh well, I'm pregnant. So I grabbed the letter, and I was just holding it in my hand, and I was like crying, like not sobbing, but I was crying. And then they were just looking at me, and I was like, can I have a minute? And they're like, yeah. So then, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like cry thinking about it. I was just like standing there leaning against the counter, like crying, like holding it in front of my face. And then my dad just got up, and he just like hugged me, and he said, I'm not disappointed in you because you've like accomplished so much, and everyone makes mistakes, so that doesn't take away from everything you've already done. And he was like, we're just gonna support you, and there's no point on me yelling at you or complaining, because there's not, there's nothing we can do about it now. So I was just hugging him, and it was just like, I was just crying because I felt like, so like, I felt like they were disappointed in me. Like, I don't know. That's how they found out, and they took it better than I thought, because I think they realized, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm about to start crying, so I look ugly. I wasn't expecting them to like kick me out or like yell at me, but I was expecting them to be like disappointed and like sit down with me, and like, I told my mom, and she told my dad, like, I didn't want them to think that I like got off the hook, or like that was like the only discussion that we were gonna have about it, because I knew it wasn't. And I didn't want them to think like, oh, like that's it. Like, no, because I knew there was gonna be more discussions to come, which I was okay with. But yeah, that's pretty much how they found out, and I'm glad the way they took it, and I'm really like fortunate and lucky that my parents were so supportive and they took it well. So okay, so I had a doctor's appointment like the next day, and we went, and it was just like a dating ultrasound. So they found out I was 10 weeks at the time. So I guess I'll give like a few little words of advice if you are like a teen mom. I try to make this pretty short. I don't want a really long video, but if you're nervous to like tell your parents and stuff, I don't know, I can't tell everyone write a letter because I don't know how your parents are, but that worked for me, kind of. So make sure when you tell them that you have a plan. Like, think about it. If you find out, before your parents, think about what you're gonna do. Like, okay, if you don't have a job, like, try to get a job, and like tell them you're trying to get a job. Or if you're in school, like, try to think of a plan, so you're not just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Because like, if you go like completely clueless, then that's not helping your situation. So try to think of what you're gonna do, and compose yourself to tell them and just be mature about it. And yeah, that probably wasn't the best advice, but just think things are gonna get better. The worst part is like the beginning, telling them, because it's shocking news, probably shocking news to everyone. So just think that's the worst part, and you know, once you get that over with, it'll be kind of smooth sailing maybe for you. But yeah, I don't think I really have anything else to add into this. That's pretty much it. That's how I told my parents, and that's how I found out. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.